I think I have to start by saying thank you. You have my eternal gratitude, Mr. Jim, for everything that you and your staff have been doing, have done, all the generosity, taking your time to listen to us, to care about what's happening in Brazil. And we will be forever grateful and forever in debt. Thank you so much. As I was listening to my colleagues come here and say their piece and speak their mind, I was wondering, how did we come to such a point in which we have to organize a press conference, a meeting, to talk about something so obvious as freedom to speak your mind? The foundation, the pillar, fundamental pillar of any democracy. If democracy is the will of the people, how can you know the will of the people if they are not allowed to talk, if they are not allowed to debate? How is it that we've come so down, so the bottom of everything to a point in which we have to defend something that we believed it was conquered for eternity, something that we wouldn't have to worry about anymore? We keep learning at school about the dark ages, how everything was bad at the dark ages, how people were prosecuted without due process, how one totalitarian system chose people to execute and destroy their lives, and that way they were able to stay in power indefinitely. Are we living in the dark ages again? Because by the definition that I've just stated, it seems like we are going back into the dark ages. With all the technology, with all this access to information, we're living in a time right now where people are afraid to say what they think because they can be prosecuted, they can be arrested, they can have their life destroyed, their passports seized, their bank accounts frozen, their reputation completely destroyed. But is that good for democracy? What democracy is this that they are trying to convince people that in order for it to continue existing, we have to shut up millions and millions of people? How did we come to such a point? Well, like my friend said, I have been a congressman for over a year and 4 months, I think. I'm actually an English teacher. And hopefully I wish my country to go back to being a full democracy so I can go back to doing what I was meant to do, which is teaching. My life is in a classroom, and that's what I want to go back doing. Being a congressman, it's a sacrifice. It's a gap from my vocation that I think I needed to do in order to give my kids, our kids, a free country. I was in Europe recently with some of my colleagues that are here today. And during the speech, I defined that what's happening in the world today, that's not just in Brazil, that totalitarianism is a virus. And like any virus, it has the ability to adapt after a certain time. Society evolved and created institutions and tools and press and many things in order to avoid totalitarian people to reaching power, to avoid dictatorships to existing again. But just like a virus, the totalitarianism desire, the totalitarianism hunger of certain people adapted and were able to bypass all the system that we put in place in order to never let a democracy exist again. And when I say that the world should be looking to what's going on in Brazil, because Brazil is the most advanced experiment on how to implement a dictatorship disguised as a democracy. A dictatorship that you have the institutions, you have press, but you cannot say anything that they don't like or your life will be destroyed. I keep saying that Venezuela has Supreme Court, has parliament, has prosecution, has a president. But then if I ask any clear-minded people if Venezuela is a democracy, the answer will be no. It is not a democracy. Brazil is at the same level. And every time me and my colleagues that are here today that I consider great warriors, because to be here today saying this is Putzkov when you go back to Brazil being arrested at the airport and have our lives destroyed. But we chose to do this because what we are fighting for is bigger than our own freedom. We are choosing to run this risk because what we are fighting for is not for us to benefit it from. It's for the population of our country, for our kids, and now, as I see, for the population of the whole world. If what's happening in Brazil succeeds, if they are able to convince the world that Brazil is a democracy, even though they are arresting parliament, arresting the congressmen, arresting journalists, sentencing people without even a base, a foundation for the sentencing, censoring people on social network, then it will metastasize. It will go to all over the world, and the world will copy what happens in Brazil. So Brazil is the most advanced experiment of this new dictatorship. And we need to cut this evil on the root. And the root is happening in my country. Just the fact that we are here, my friends, we know that we are setting a huge target on our backs. And that's why I'm very proud to walk alongside each and every one of you. That's why I'm very proud to say that I walk shoulder to everyone here. Alan dos Santos, who suffered so much but never gave up on defending freedom of speech, democracy, and the search for truth, which nowadays is a crime. Search for the truth. That's why they want to censor us. Truth is a value that you only achieve it through debate, through discourse, through communication. You will hear opinions that you abominate, but the search for truth requires you to go through that. And when you silence millions of people in a country, and when you start determining what can be said and what cannot be said, you are abandoning the search for truth. And you never gave up, Alan. And for that, I commend you. I might be here saying, but I really have to say all my colleagues that came here today, because it requires a lot of courage to be here and defending freedom of speech and then going back to a country like Brazil the way it is. Cabo Gilberto, who is here, also in the fight. Marcos Polon, Eduardo Bolsonaro, Bia Kicis. We have here Deltan Dallagnol, who in our heart is still a congressman. Nicolas Ferreira, a phenomenon, one of the greatest congressmen in the world today, not only in Brazil. Felipe Barros, Rodrigo Valadares, and everyone who came here. It's a pleasure to be beside you guys. I might be here now speaking on this microphone, but to the merit, the credit goes to all of you. To finalize my speech, a message to the world. Ever since regular people started having voice with internet, suddenly freedom of speech became a risk for democracy. Isn't that strange? If democracy requires opinion, how is it that when internet came along and social media came along and that took away the monopoly of what was said or the right and wrong opinion, and every single person in the world who has access to internet suddenly started having voice? How is it possible that when everyone started having voice, suddenly freedom of speech is the greatest risk for democracy? The truth is, there was never a democracy. There was always a system choosing who would be in power and who wouldn't be in power, and you only watched as a bystander. And now people can actually participate in the democratic system. People can actually talk about political topics, and suddenly that became the greatest risk for them. So we are here to say that we will not give up on our voices. We will not stand down. We will not run away from the fight, because what we are doing is not for our own benefit, like I said, it's for the future generation. We have one goal in our lives: to give a better world for our kids. And we are here today fighting for that. Our children live in a free country, in a free world. So doesn't matter what country you're from, doesn't matter if you're from Canada or Australia or New Zealand, stand up. Be fearless. The world needs fearless people, people with courage and brave to fight for what is right. They are trying to destroy our most fundamental right, which is our freedom of speech, our voice. If they succeed in doing that, we will have no weapons anymore to defend any other right. Stand up. Fight for what's right. Look at what's happening in Brazil. We will win. They will not be able to defeat us. And you can use Brazil as an example with the rest of the world, because my friends and I will not give up. That's it. Thank you.